Hey guys, so today's lesson question we are going to be looking at what are the functions of the skeleton and how do synovial joints work. So before you start anything, I'd like you to take a moment to refresh yourself on the anatomy of the skeleton and on the bones. So we have the cranium, the clavicle, the sternum, the humerus, the radius, the ulna, femur, patella, tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges all in the front view. And then in the back view, we've also got the scapula, the ribs, the vertebral column, pelvis, carpals, metacarpals, phalanges, fibula, and tibia. Take a moment to refresh yourself on these words before you continue with the video so that you're able to jump straight in with that terminology. I'd now like you to take a moment to have a look at the muscles of the body. So to start, we have from the front view, we have the deltoids, the pectoralis major, the biceps, the abdominals, the hip flexors, the quadriceps, the tibialis anterior. Then from the back view, we have the rotator cuffs, we have the triceps, the latissimus dorsi, the gluteus maximus, the hamstrings, and the gastrocnemius. So we're going to be starting by looking at protection. So the bones of the skeleton protect the internal organs and reduce the risk of injury or impact. So for example, the cranium protects the brain. The pelvis protects the reproductive organs. The ribs protect the heart and the lungs. And the vertebrae protects the spinal cord. We also have support. The skeleton keeps the body upright and provides a framework for muscle and tissue attachment. We also have shape and points for attachment. The skeleton provides the human shape and determines the height of a person. Movement. The skeleton allows movement of the body as a whole and its individual parts. The bones act as levers and also form joints that allow muscles to pull on them and produce joint movements. Mineral storage. Bones are made of minerals and act as a mineral store for calcium and phosphorus. Blood cell production. Certain bones in the skeleton contain bone marrow, and the bone marrow produces red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Examples of bones that contain marrow are the pelvis, sternum, vertebrae, and clavicle. So exam question for you. Movement is one of the functions of the skeleton. Name 3 other functions. So example answers include support, protection, shape, blood production, or mineral storage. You just need to pick 3 of those in order to get the marks, with a reminder that movement cannot be one of those because it already is there in the question. The shape and type of bone determine the amount of movement. So we're going to start by looking at flat bones. These are for protection of vital organs. So for example, the rib cage protects the lungs and the heart. We have short bones. Short bones enable finer controlled movements. For example, hands or fingers playing the piano. And then we have long bones. Long bones enable gross movement. For example, arms and legs running for the bus. Okay, exam question. Flat bones provide a protective function within the body. Name 2 flat bones and using a sport action of your choice, suggest how these bones provide protection during performance. Award 1 mark for each of the following points up to a maximum of 4 marks. Award up to a maximum of 2 AO1 marks and up to a maximum of 2 AO2 marks. So examples we have here. So we have the cranium, which provides protection for the brain whilst heading a football. We have the sternum, which provides protection to the heart when controlling a football on the chest. We have the scapula, provides protection for the shoulder joint during contact made with another player when catching a netball. We have the ribs, which protect the lungs during any impact with a hockey ball, or the pelvis, which protects the reproductive system and bladder during contact made in a rugby tackle. Obviously, there are other equivalents that could be used in your responses as well. Synovial joints, freely movable. A joint is a place where two or more bones meet and is also called an articulation. Synovial joints allow us the free movement to perform skills and techniques during physical exercise. Okay, so let's have a look at the anatomy of a synovial joint. So we have the joint capsule. The joint capsule prevents wear and tear on the bones. We have synovial fluid. Synovial joints have synovial fluid in the joint cavity that lubricates or oils the joint so it moves smoothly. When we warm up, this makes the synovial fluid more viscous, which gives us a better range of movement. Synovial fluid is made by the synovial membrane. Cartilage. The synovial joints, the ends of the bones are covered with cartilage called articular cartilage, which cushions the joint and prevents friction and wear and tear between the bone ends. Cartilage is a soft, spongy connective tissue. Ligaments. Ligaments attach bone to bone. They act to give stability to joints or help to prevent dislocation. They are tough and slightly elastic and can absorb shock. Tendons attach muscle to bone. They pull on the bone to produce movement. Joints in the skeleton allow movement to take place. Joints are held together by ligaments. Muscles are attached to bones by tendons. Muscles work in pairs. When one contracts, its pair relaxes. When a muscle contracts, it pulls on the bone, which produces the movement. So, an exam question. We need to identify structures A and B from the diagram below. So, A would be the cartilage and B would be synovial fluid. Next question. For one of the structures identified in part A, describe its function in the prevention of injury. So you need to make sure that you get that question right first before you're able to get this right. Okay, so if we're looking at cartilage, we're looking at it absorbs shock and acts as a buffer between the bones, prevents bones rubbing together, reducing friction. At the synovial fluid, it lubricates the joint, which prevents bones rubbing together, reducing friction, and allows the joint to run smoothly. Answers must be related to the prevention of injury. Types of joints. So we're going to start by having a look at the elbow joint. So the articulating bones are the humerus, the radius, and the ulna. The muscles that produce the movement are the biceps and the triceps. Then we have the shoulder joint. We have the humerus and the scapula. The clavicle is not part of the shoulder joint, just FYI. Many muscles are used to make the shoulder joint move, including the deltoid, trapezius, and latimus dorsi. Then we have the hip joint. The articulating bones are the pelvis and the femur. The head of the femur is ball, and cup in pelvis is the socket. Muscles that produce movement, muscles which move the knee are the quadriceps and the hamstrings. And then we have the knee joint. The articulating bones are the femur and the tibia. The patella is not classed as part of the joint, nor is the fibula. Many muscles are used to move the hip joint, including the gluteals. Okay, joint action. So we have flexion. The definition of flexion is decreasing the angle at a joint. So this could be used like in a bicep curl, the upward phase of that bicep curl. Then we have extension, which is increasing the angle at a joint. So this could be the downward phase of a bicep curl. We then have rotation, where the limb moves in a circular movement around a fixed joint towards or away from the midline of the body. For example, hitting a drive shot in golf in the hips. And we have abduction, movement away from the midline of the body. Outward phase of a star jump, or holding a crucifix position on gymnastics rings. We also have adduction. So this is movement towards the midline of the body. So sporting examples may be the inward phase of a star jump. We have circumduction, which is the movement of the limb, hand, or fingers in a circular pattern using the sequential combination of flexion, adduction, extension, and abduction motions. So, for example, bowling and cricket. We have dorsiflexion, the action of raising the foot upwards towards the shin. For example, when sprinting in 100 meters, the upward phase of the leg action. And then we have plantar flexion, a movement in which the top of your foot points away from your leg. So pushing off the blocks in 100 meters or performing a pirouette. So exam question, which one of the following statements describes the term extension at a hinge joint? The answer would be the movement of a limb which increases the angle at a joint. Next question, which of the following statements best describes edit? Which of the following statements best describes abduction at a ball and socket joint? The answer to this would be A, the movement of a limb away from the midline of the body. Okay, next set of questions. Movement occurs when bones and muscles work together. Explain what is meant by extension, and then give 2 examples of sporting situation where extension occurs. So remember, we need to be specific. Which part or phase of the movement does it occur? So, for first question, award up to 2 marks for correct explaining extension. So, increasing of an angle between 2 bones, a joint which is straightened so that one of the bones of the joint moves away from the other, or the action of opening a joint. Then for the second question, award 1 further mark for each of the correct given examples. So straightening the leg at the knee when kicking a football, straightening the arm at the elbow when throwing a ball. A correct actual example, such as performing tricep extensions. Obviously, there are other suitable examples as well. Okay, so we had a look at the joint names. We had the hip joint, shoulder joint, knee joint, and elbow joint. Now we're going to have a look at the joint types. So the hip joint and the shoulder joint are both ball and socket joints. So the movement possible: flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, rotation, and circumduction. So some sporting examples. So we might have the abduction, which would be the outward phase of a star jump, or we have the adduction, which is the inward phase of a star jump. Then for the knee joint and the elbow joint, we have a hinge joint. So the possible movements here are flexion and extension. So sporting examples for a knee joint may be kicking a football or running, and for an elbow joint, it may be performing a bicep curl. So the upward phase would be flexion and the downward phase would be extension. Exam question. What type of joint is found at the shoulder? And name 2 types of movement at the shoulder. So this is for a total of 3 marks. Okay, so first question, it would be a ball and socket. You could also accept synovial or freely movable. And then you just need to pick 2 movements from the following. which would be flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, circumduction, elevation, depression, or rotation. Look now at how muscles and bone work together to provide movement. So we're going to have a look at the types of muscle contraction. We're looking at a bicep curl here. So we have concentric contractions. So concentric equals contraction. There are two main types of muscle contraction. So we have the isotonic contraction. These occur when a muscle contracts and changes length, and there are two types. Isotonic concentric contraction. This involves the muscle shortening. The origin and insertion of the muscle move closer together and the muscle becomes fatter. Then we have eccentric. So eccentric equals relax. So isotonic eccentric contraction. This involves the muscle lengthening whilst under tension. The origin and the insertion move further away from each other. In eccentric contraction provides the control of a movement on the downward phase, and it works to resist the force of gravity. Then we have isometric contraction. This involves a muscle producing tension but staying the same length. This occurs when the body is fixed in one position. Here the muscles are contracting isometrically to hold this gymnast in the crucifix position and not change length. So isometric equals muscle is static, so it doesn't move. Think about the S's there. So remembering each contraction type, you have concentric, which is muscles contract or shortens. We have eccentric, muscles relax, which lengthen, and we have isometric, muscles static, so it doesn't move. So a reminder of what we've looked at today. We've had a look at protection, we've had a look at support, we have had a look at shape and points for attachment and movement of the skeleton. We've also looked at mineral storage, blood cell production. We've looked at flat bones, short bones, long bones. Then we had a look at joints such as the elbow joint, the shoulder joint, the hip joint, the knee joint. We had a look at the joint action such as flexion, extension, rotation, abduction, adduction, circumduction, dorsiflexion, and plantar flexion. And we had a look at the joint types such as ball and socket and hinge joints. And then we had a look at the types of muscle contraction such as concentric, eccentric, and isometric contractions.